Welcome back to the Pioneer Mind podcast. I'm excited to be back with you. It's been a little bit of a while since I've done an episode. Been busy with work and life and kids, and been to a conference and that kind of thing. So I've been kind of out of the loop. But I'm glad to be back into this. I really miss it. I love these discussions that I am able to have, and really want to just talk about the schedule for the week. Tomorrow I'll be having in Justin Cleveland, a local candidate for a House district here in Montana, and we're going to be interviewing him, give him an opportunity to kind of just talk about his views and his run for an office here in the state of Montana. Montana has a lot of challenges right now, just in the sense of there's an illusion going on with who's an actual Republican, who's a Democrat, what they actually stand for. What we have in our state is a lot of misdirection in terms of what people actually are. There's a lot of money flowing in here. I read this morning that it's like $760,000 have poured into state races this year from out of state, which is mind boggling. For our state, that doesn't seem like it would be that important other than our resources. But as a population, it doesn't really make sense sometimes, the money that's spent around the country. But just on the state races alone, it's pretty astonishing. I know at my home, we get uh, probably 2 to 3 flyers every day, usually the same 3 or 4 people, obviously running for our district. So we're getting them from every day. And those are very, very expensive. And I know these folks are not paying for them themselves. There's out of state money supporting, whatever person they need to get a policy through, a bill through at the state level. So, and that, again, money is speech, and I'm not against that. It's just what happens is they create an illusion around a candidate that isn't real, and what you find out is a lot of Republicans are that are running are actually Democrats in disguise. They get down and govern completely opposite of what you think you just voted for. So Justin will come in. He's going to be running for a Republican office. We'll talk all kinds of issues in just the state of Montana, the state of politics, his candidacy. So I'm excited to have him in here tomorrow, and you can look forward to that. And I'll get it out as soon as we get it done recorded. So kind of cool for that. Today, I want to just spend some time talking about two things. One thing is I just went to a conference down in Las Vegas. And as I told my wife when I got out of the car to go, I said, what stays in Vegas comes home. I came home. Had a great time. Was part of just such a unique experience. Went down there for what's called the XRP Las Vegas convention, and it's speakers from companies, and there were some representatives there from the government that are trying to push through the Clarity Act for crypto and blockchain rules through the CFTC, SEC, all these governing bodies. But you just come away with the idea that the financial reset that's occurring, that I would say 99% of the population, that you mentioned to them that something's occurring from the the traditional system, is absolutely being torn down and replaced. If you follow anything at all, you can see why banks are just absolutely losing it in terms of trying to fight these from the ground up developments in finances. Some of these projects that you see in blockchain that are being developed in crypto really started in people's homes. They started writing code. They started coming up with ideas, even as back into the 90s, thinking of the idea of scaling up to give people sovereignty and to be their own bank, to control their own monies, how they buy and sell, not looking for permission to start a business, not looking for, from the state, licensing, all those kind of things, the freedoms that we just don't realize have kind of slipped away. I believe that blockchain and crypto, not all of them, but because there's 10,000 cryptos and literally maybe 12 will make it at the end in terms of the ones with use case, ones that are going to solve a problem. Most of these cryptos will go by the wayside, which makes total sense. They're just don't have a use case. But the ones that do, that have created a system and a blockchain that has a use case, will pressure the traditional system in a way that we don't really understand. I don't fully understand it. I've been studying it since 2012. I read about it probably 5 to 6 hours. And I'm not exaggerating when I say at least 5 to 6 hours a day I'm spending on learning about this technology. and have had some pretty discouraging moments over the last decade or more in terms of reading about it, because really the the system that's in place has been terrified by it and really wants it to be torn down. And what happened is it's from the ground up. It's people like me, just one person who's pushing forward with the idea of me being in charge of my own finances. And really a lot of my experience comes out of 2008, realizing that the banks got bailed out, made whole. Every one of us lost. But anyone that had any kind of business at that time, entrepreneurs, took a beating, and no one cared. There was, obviously no bailout coming for us, but the banks got bailed, made out whole for the thing they caused, which was really what the eye opener to so many of us is that there's got to be a better way to have more say in how money's handled and in the future. So there is a reset coming. So I go to this conference. I'm meeting people from all over the world, all over the country, and I never have been part of a community like this. I would even say better than church in some ways. It sounds sad to say that, but just genuine people that were really just for me and for my efforts. They were so encouraging. They weren't jealous and envy. Envy is the idea of, I want what you have it and I hate you for having it. But what we find out is these people were for me, and it was not a selfishness. And even the leadership, Brad Garlinghouse and David Swartz, and as they spoke, and David was the creator of this technology, and he just talks about it almost as a calling, as if he wanted to change the world and scale it up to really empower individuals when what we see is all powers being centralized in governments and institutions and systems. And so it's really the opposite of the trend that we've seen the last 40 years. And that's why, again, it's under attack from about every angle. One of the things I found out at the conference was that as we move forward, like politically, with the Clarity Act and the different rules they're trying to set in place, as these become financial instruments, financial use cases for the SWIFT system, for the Bank of International Settlements, for all the areas that some of these technologies are going to be used and replace the old system. You find out, I met a man there who has been working for JP Morgan for 18 years. Essentially, they've been using blockchain for 5 or more years. In their own private phone calls, they're saying, we're going to be using this, we're setting up protocols, we're going to be doing this, because what happens is I can send $1 million to somebody for basically 0.0001 cent. It settles in 1 second. It isn't a message. Like the SWIFT system at banks is just a message system. They send a message to the next bank that there's a wire that has been instituted, and we certify that this wire has been done. No money's been transferred. Nothing's settled. So blockchain does the settling. It does the messaging, all within literally a second for any amount, for not even a penny. In my own life, in my business, I send a lot of wires and transfer quite a bit of money. It's a huge expense, and it takes a lot of hours. You're sometimes days, takes days to get anything done. So the friction in the system is so negative for how things operate around the world. And these blockchains come along and solve that problem. But traditional finance doesn't want that, because here's what they want. They want to stay the same because they're charging outrageous fees to do the most simplest thing. But at the same time, what we find out from this guy at JP Morgan is they're using blockchain in the background at 0.0001 cent cost to transfer money. They're using it and then charging me $25 to send a wire. So they're making that difference, and they do it thousands and thousands of times a day. So they don't want that scam to end. There's just, and again, this is just one example of the many things going on with banking, and again, they're fighting for their life. And I think, again, they can't stop what started at the bottom with just individuals. So it's really powerful. I'm excited about it. I love being a part of it. I enjoyed the conference. I learned so much, and really what I came away with mostly is that there is a future and a hope. Sometimes we feel fenced in as people, as Americans, as citizens, and I'm talking citizens of the world in terms of financially, is like there's an us and them thing going on. But I just so encouraged by what we are starting to experience as people are solving problems from the bottom up. And again, I just like being a part of that. So just love that conference. And I'll probably speak more about it as I go forward, because I believe it's just such a big subject. And I do want to do some teaching on it. As I said, I'm not exaggerating when I say I read 5 or 6 hours a day about it. A lot of times late into the night, I'll be reading something, and there's just so much to learn. And even sometimes when I feel like I know something, like down at this conference, there's a couple guys that I got connected with and I'm visiting with them, and I just walked away that I just realized I don't know anything. It's so amazing how much there is to learn. So I'm trying to learn that and understand it. And the conference was a big part of that. And I'll speak more about it in future episodes, that's for sure. I wanted to talk too also today about oil and gas. I keep being asked all the time about, well, the prices are 113 and 106, and they're fluctuating a little bit, obviously between 90 and into the teens. And again, with more volatility, they sure could go higher. But I keep being told, oh, you must be making a killing. The oil field must be making a killing. The truth of the matter is the oil field is terrified. I think a bee's nest has been kicked, and you can't unkick a bee's nest. Our guess is if we start investing in wells over and over again, just start piling money into projects that take 6 months to a year or even more to develop, in terms of all the permitting and all the process to get a well placed, that the oil will crash. The big guys, there's even an article today that says that the big boys in the oil field are bewildered, is the word. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to make a decision, because this is uncharted territory, and just in terms of the politics of all this. So it isn't being driven by supply and demand. It isn't being driven by necessarily market factors, whatever you want to consider, or what the wise set of principles you'd guide yourself to make a business decision. It's really based on logistics are completely a mess. And those are going to show up in fertilizer, food, and every product we own. Plus, the oil logistics is really kind of disturbed, obviously, with the Strait of Hormuz, which everyone is getting tuned up on their geography. But the real thing here that's going on is that what's created the volatility geopolitically has caused a absolute almost inability to make a decision. So as you look at the politics, you have to go back in history a little bit. After World War II, we promised the world that our Navy would protect the seas for global trade. Every country in the world was saying, hey, we can't have a hodgepodge of security measures and security promises to keep the flow of goods, oil, all these things in place. So after World War II, the U.S. said, hey, we're going to patrol the seas. We'll keep them safe. Over the course of my life, I've heard many times that we're the policemen of the world. And really, that's what this is referring to. When they say that we're keeping the global order in place so trade can continue, it was really the reason China rose, and Malaysia and Indonesia and Taiwan and Japan, all these amazing technology and manufacturing centers rose because we protected the open seas. Well, you can see, whether you believe in this Iran war or not, it doesn't matter. It's not a subject at all for me in the sense of thinking of oil and gas. But we have promised that we can keep the world safe in terms of logistics. And what we're seeing with this example is that maybe we've lost that ability. We are not able to sustain the order that we used to. And even today, we've announced pullouts of Germany and Italy and Spain with our troops. We're pulling back to the home base, which is probably not a bad thing. But in many ways, logistics are the main issue here with the oil and gas. We produce roughly 108 million barrels a day in terms of actual production around the world, but we use around 105 to 109. It kind of can range per day. So the oil and gas supplies are very, very tight when you consider it's just 1 or 2% either way is how tight it is. So when you create a volatility in the logistics of 20 and 30% of oil not moving, again, there's a shock to the system. And I don't think we've fully seen the shock yet. I think we've been able to sustain some things. They're trying to open reserves in around the world. I think China has done that. We've done that. But again, that's 4 million barrels, I think Trump released, which is nothing compared to the actual needs every day. So that's more of a political thing as well. So again, we're probably in for a rough ride. And I think energy is going to be a big part of our future, obviously. Wind and solar just doesn't cut it, can't even produce 4% of what we need. So oil, gas, coal are really the resources that we got to, stabilize. So anyway, that's the future. And many, many years ago, I went to a seminar it was a conference in Minnesota. And in Minnesota, the guy was talking about all the opportunities in energy are not in wind and solar, but in oil, gas, and coal. And again, once we establish that our dominance in an area, which we have, we are the biggest producer in the world. But at the same time, we can't have logistics problems, which we've promised these security measures, which aren't coming through. So there's definitely a lot of challenges on the oil and gas side coming for this next year. Anyone who thinks it's going to just cool its jets for the summer, I think, is tricking themselves. I heard an official with Trump's administration saying $3 gas by June. We're into May already. I just can't hardly see it happening, especially with the volatility today with some of the attacks. And again, Iran is Persia. They've been around 5,000 years. They're not going anywhere, and they know how to poke the bear and keep this going because they know the real war is economic for Trump, for his policies, and for America. The bombing really doesn't mean much to them. It's really how they can poke the bear with us in the economy and the world economy, actually. And it makes them have a little more control than anyone would ever admit. And again, I could be completely reading it wrong, but just as a person in business in the oil field, I talk to guys quite a bit in leadership across a number of companies, and they're just literally asking, how do we make a decision? Because as soon as we pull the trigger and start drilling and increasing our oil supply, oil will drop from 113 to 50, $60 because of a volatile crash. And then they're upside down losing money. So there's almost a stalemate in decision making. And, again, until things settle down, the volatility goes away, you're going to see people be more cautious about how they invest in oil and gas. Anyway, I hope that makes sense. And I look forward to tomorrow with Justin Cleveland. I invite you to check it out. I'll post it everywhere. Justin's an amazing man who I have a lot of respect for. So I look forward to interviewing him and kind of getting his thoughts on a wide range of subjects and really the state of play in Montana with politics. It's quite interesting what's going on if you do any paying attention at all. Obviously a wide range of opinions, but Justin can give some clarity to that and just kind of his goals and why he's running. And I look forward to interviewing him. So that's just an announcement, and I'll record this tomorrow for him and get it out there to everybody. Hope you're doing well. And again, thanks for coming to the podcast. If you can like and subscribe, that helps me. I've had a lot of views of some of my previous energy podcasts. I've been super pleased with the response. And it kind of makes it fun when people actually say they're learning things. And I do have some podcasts coming up with some other leaders in the oil field. And one of my colleagues who I work with a lot for blending and product development, packaging and stuff, and all the things we do within our company to get products out to the oil field to serve these companies. So I love what I do. I love talking about it. And there's a lot of change coming, and I think energy is going to be a big part of us sustaining what we're trying to do in this country. And I just look forward to talking more about it. Please subscribe and like if you can, and I want to grow my audience for sure. I'm not just doing this for fun, so I want to have a good time with it. So thanks for visiting, and thanks so much for everything you do. And I hope it helps to have these discussions.